This is just a short video to give you some ideas and guidance about how to best support your child in revising for their science mocks in January. So first of all, it's really important to be aware of what course they're following, because there's numerous different courses in science, and if learners look at some of the resources that we are going to look at later, and they click the wrong one, they're going to find themselves either not revising what they need to, or revising things that they don't need to revise. So we are studying Combined Science, and it is the Trilogy course from AQA. Okay, so that's Trilogy Combined Science for AQA. There are a small number of students who are studying separate sciences, biology, chemistry and physics, but they know who they are, and they know that they are still going to do the Combined Science mock exam coming up. So just to give you a quick overview so you're aware of what the learners should be revising. For Combined Science, there are a combination of units from the 3 disciplines of science. So there are 7 biology units, there are 10 chemistry, and there are 7 physics units as well. When they are assessed in 2 papers of each of those disciplines. So they will have 2 biology papers, which are an hour and 15 minutes, 2 chemistry papers, and 2 physics papers that are all the same length. So it's important that when your child is preparing for the mocks that they are revising for the right paper and they know what units are going to come up in that paper. So for biology, paper 1, they should be revising units 1 to 4, paper 2, it's 5 to 7. That's the same units for physics, but for chemistry, because there's more of them, for paper 1, they will need to revise unit 1 to 5 for paper 1 and units 6 to 10 for paper 2. So it's just to make sure that they are revising the right materials and the right content for each of those exams. Now, as you will probably be aware, there's a few changes to the way that final exams will take place in the summer. So from the exam board for Science for AQA, they've summarised the changes as these 3 key points. So the things that are going to be different this year are that practicals can be taught by teachers as demonstrations or simulations. To be honest, that won't affect anything about the way that they revise. It's just something to be aware of. If they haven't done a required practical, it's not something they need to be concerned about. The second is that they are going to get a revised equation sheet. Learners always get an equation sheet, but it's going to have more detail than normal. And finally, and this is really important for their revision as well, they are going to get advanced information on the exams before they start to revise for the final exams. So what we've tried to do is mirror that in our mock exams. So learners have been provided, if they have a look on their teams, if they haven't done so already, they will be able to see that they have a revised equation sheet. So that summarises for them the equations that they will be given in the exam. So they don't need to memorise them. So I don't want learners wasting the time trying to memorise these things when they don't need to revise them. They will be given these equations. And as I said, there's some advanced information that's going to be available. So what we've tried to do is mirror that in their mocks. So we have provided learners with a breakdown of the topics that are going to be in each of the exam papers. So again, on their teams, they will have been given guidance for biology, chemistry and physics. So that will look something like this. An A4 sheet, and it summarises what's on there. If I just zoom in on that a little bit, you can see the kind of thing that's on there. So for each of the questions, it's telling you what unit they need to revise and specifically what topics they should focus on. It is important to note that this is not covering every single tiny little variation in the question. There may be other tiny little things that creep into the exam that might be from different units, but this is going to be the focus for their exams. So if they focus the revision on these topics, that's the best way to prepare for these mocks. So they have those on teams for biology, chemistry and physics, and the ones that they've been provided with will be for the correct tier. So it'll be either higher or foundation, and they will know which one they are. In terms of revision resources, there are plenty out there for science, so I was just going to highlight just a few of them that a lot of learners have found particularly useful in the past and in the current year. The first one is something that all learners have been provided with in Year 11. So every child in Year 11 has been given a revision guide for their science course. As you can see from there, it's the AQA Combined Science, and it will be either higher or foundation, appropriate to the exams that they will be sitting. Some learners will have the separate biology, chemistry and physics, but they will know which parts to revise from there, so that's not a problem. But most learners will have the Combined Science Revision Guide. That covers the entirety of the course, the biology, chemistry and physics, so they can use that as an excellent resource for covering all of the content in the course. The second thing that a lot of learners have found really useful has been Seneca. If your child hasn't already, please encourage them to log on to Seneca and to either do the preset tasks that are set by their teachers, or they can simply go on, add their own courses, so it's not just for science, they can add other things as well. And then, once they've selected their courses, as you can see here, I've selected the biology aspect of science, but down the side on the left there, you've got all the different topics, and that becomes another drop down from which you can choose really specific topics. So if learners are really aware of things that they need to focus on, it's a really good way of focusing on those small criteria that they need to revise. One thing that learners have found useful for many years now, although it's been updated recently, is GCSE Bite Size. Again, not just for science, but the resources for science on there are really good. So if you simply put this into Google, GCSE Bite Size Science, it will come up. Now there's a number of options that you can take on there. It does give you the option of just setting a quiz, so you can highlight your weaknesses and then choose to do some work on there. Alternatively, you can select the topics that you want to revise. So you can select your history, your geography, your biology, whatever it is that you want to revise. And within that then, you've again got the different units and you've got different topics within that. So for example, here we've got cell structure, which is in cell biology, the first unit for science. And in there's resources in which they can revise, so it gives them some information, it gives them some videos, and then they can also test themselves on that as well. Now some learners prefer to use video resources, so one of the ones that we recommend is Free Science Lessons. Again, if you just type it into Google, it will come up, or if you type it into YouTube, it will come up. And these are nice because they are quite short video clips. As you can see from the screen there, they're like 3-4 minutes. They're not very big at all, but they're really clear, really accurate in the way that they describe things. So they're nice short videos to revise specific topics, or even to watch a few together and revise whole topics. Now I've just given you a few resources there that we think that learners have found most useful, but there are another few on there that again learners have been finding useful. Oak Academy is brilliant if they want to have a look at a whole lesson, and then there's things like Collins Connect and GCSE Pod. Now that's not an exhaustive list, but it is just to point you in the right direction for some of the resources that we feel are really useful. I realise that was probably a lot of information, so if your child wants to access any of those resources or any of the links to the things that I've shared, if they go into their Teams and they go onto the ATL Grade A tasks, there is some guidance in there, and that contains a number of links to lots of those different resources.